Welcome to everybody to this BYO enrichment elective session. I just want to start by saying my name is Sarah Sless. I'm sitting in Israel and I work for the Center for Israel Engagement of JCC Association. I'm joined here by Annette McCann, who is sitting in New York. Working for the JCC Association, has been responsible for putting the amazing vendor sponsorship program together. So a quick plug to go and visit the vendor halls, the virtual vendor halls. I want to start by saying that JCC Association's philosophy of inclusion really has its foundation in the Psalm 133 that we heard yesterday at the opening of ProCon and is on all the mail. Hinei ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. How good and pleasant it is when we live together as one. Guided by the wise words of the psalmist, JCC Association of North America commits to build, nurture, and elevate a culture of belonging in which we welcome, recognize, and celebrate people of all abilities and identities in accessible, safe settings throughout the JCC movement. How wonderful it is that JCC Association has just recently put together, after many years, this statement of inclusion. And today we get to welcome Amanda Kloo to be with us. It's so appropriate that Dr. Amanda Kloo is with us. She is the Director of Inclusive Recreation at the National Inclusion Project. Dr. Kloo is a veteran educator, interventionist, and developmental specialist with experience teaching children of all ages and abilities. She is also an adaptive fitness coach and athlete with cerebral palsy who provides inclusive play and exercise experiences to children and adults with exceptional needs. So I have to admit, I did some homework and I checked out the National Inclusion Project website, and I realized that their three core beliefs are so in sync with the JCCs and the JCC Association. In bold, it says on their website, every child can participate, every child can make an interesting discussion, as I just know it's going to be. Amanda.
Thank you so very much. If someone could give me a thumbs up just to know that you can hear me okay, nod your head, give a thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you so much for that feedback. I appreciate it. And I appreciate this opportunity. And I'm so grateful to join all of you in your learning and your discovery this week. But more than anything, your connection and your relationships to a common goal. So I, in the spirit of inclusion, appreciate all that you do every day, and particularly your commitment to learning to grow and connect and improve together this week. Thank you so very much. I am going to share my screen so that we can follow along together in a PowerPoint presentation to guide our discussion today. But there will be multiple moments throughout the presentation that I'll ask you to participate. You can participate through using the chat function. You can unmute to participate. You can flag me down and wave your hands in the air to participate. The choice is yours. However you are comfortable with engaging, I do welcome you to engage. If you can see my PowerPoint presentation, thumbs up or head nods from folks. Okay, I love it. So I'm going to spend a few minutes introducing to you who it is that I am and who we are at National Inclusion Project. First and foremost, I am a mom. I am a mom of twin boys, one who has exceptional medical needs, and I am a teacher. I'm a lifelong teacher. I myself have a disability. I have cerebral palsy, and I am in my mid-40s, so accessibility and inclusion wasn't always necessary part of my school experience or part of my social experience. So I've committed my teaching life, my professional life, my personal life, and my recreational life, and now my parent life, to supporting and creating and enhancing inclusive experiences for kids and families like me. And at National Inclusion Project, that is who it is that we are and what it is that we do. For the past 17 years, NIP has been partnering with recreational organizations, schools, community centers, families, experts, educators from around the country to help create enriched, intentional, and meaningful inclusive experiences for kids with exceptionalities. We are a nonprofit organization, and we pride ourselves in learning, growing, and building relationships with educators and professionals and volunteers like you out there who are committed to our mission. Before we dive into some of our content, I know you all have had a long day of maybe sitting at your computer screen or engaged in learning in these sessions. So in the spirit of true education, we're going to move and groove a little bit to get our bodies and our minds going. So this activity is called Dancing DJs and Still Statues. The way it is that you engage in this activity is I'm going to call out a characteristic. If that characteristic applies to you, you're going to dance and move around like a DJ. You can move your head, you can move your fingers, you can flip your hair, you can get up, use the space around you, or just spin in your chair, move as much of your body as you are comfortable. If it doesn't apply to you, you're going to stay very still, just like a statue. You're going to put your head down, tighten every muscle in your body, and stay super quiet and still. Okay, so if you are able to unmute your video during this activity, I welcome it. Do whatever it is that meets your learning needs. All right, so everybody get ready to move and dance like a DJ or be still like a statue. I would love for you to dance like a DJ if you have a pet. If you have a pet, let's see you dance around like a DJ. Move around, flip that hair, move your hands in the air, and stop. Very good job. Come back to your resting space. Next, I'm going to ask for you to dance like a DJ if you have a favorite color. If you have a favorite color, any color, think about that color in your head. I want you to dance around like a DJ. Dance around like a DJ if you have a favorite color. Excellent. I love this. Great DJ dancing, guys. Nice work. And rest. Last one coming up. For this one, I'm going to ask you to dance like a DJ if, let's see what this one comes up as. This time you're going to dance like a DJ if you've learned one new thing at the conference so far. Dance like a DJ if you've learned one new thing at the conference so far. Good, use that space, wiggle those feet. And rest. Good job, everyone take a big deep breath. If you'd like to remute your camera, you're more than welcome to. Awesome. Thank you so much for starting off with me in that activity, something that all of us could do at whatever level we wanted to engage in, just to take a break and give our bodies and our minds ready to learn and engage with our content. So today we are going to talk about the concept of inclusive recreation. And inclusive recreation is the focus of the mission and purpose of National Inclusion Project. Inclusive recreation is providing inclusive, meaningfully connecting, accessible experiences where it is that all children in their recreational time or leisure activities can engage together. Why is it important that we pursue this? Well, we know that inclusion and accessibility in schools and public places and spaces has improved significantly over the last few decades, thanks to legislation, advocacy, etc. But historically, we see that recreation and social opportunities for kids with disabilities lags behind because there aren't necessarily the same push or legislation or advocacy for those social and community experiences. So the patterns that we see occur are that children are surrounded by support during their school day. So things like special education services, accessibility supports, specialized learning plans, distinct teaching strategies, etc., to meet their needs during the school day. And then when the school day ends, the kids go home and spend time alone or only interact with their families. And so, what it is that the field of inclusive recreation is committed to is creating that shower of support, all of those accommodations, integrated activities, accessible spaces, a sense of belonging, a commitment to welcoming for kids throughout their day experience, throughout their learning experience, throughout their social interactions, in their community spaces, in their neighborhoods, along with family members, connecting with new friends, neighbors, etc., so that they get these rich, engaging experiences for the whole person, not just for the academic or school-based service. So we know that extraordinary opportunities are out there, and we know that organizations are committed to doing so. They don't necessarily know how to execute it. So they may be inclusive in mission, but need some help being inclusive in action and inclusive in deed. Why? Because fundamentally, we believe that no child should sit on the sidelines. Sarah touched on this in her introduction. It was beautifully connected. And it was actually the reason why it is that I am so passionate about National Inclusion Project's partnership with JCCA and its partners, is because inclusion is simply the right thing to do. A commitment to an intentional attention to inclusion is part of who it is that we are called to be. That's stated in your mission statement, and it's stated in the fabric of everything that you do in the JCCA for improving the lives of each child, one child at a time, to then impact the world around them. As she mentioned, NIP functions on 3 core beliefs. Every child can participate, every child can make a friend, and every child can succeed. We believe that every organization should make the inclusion of children, or broadly, the inclusion of individuals of any age, the expectation, not the exception. So it should be something that's universally applied across all settings, not something that is retrofitted or created after the fact. What do we define as recreational experiences? Any beyond the school day experience. So at National Inclusion Project, we focus in on supporting kids with disabilities in recreation and leisure experiences alongside their peers who do not have disabilities. That's the magic of inclusion. So that means after school programs, camps, clubs, community centers, parks and recreation organizations, youth athletic and sports teams, zoos, museums, early childhood classrooms, childcare centers, outdoor and nature activities, fitness centers and exercise, creative and fine arts programs, you name it. If kids with disabilities are there to learn, grow, thrive, connect, and discover along with their peers, National Inclusion Project can provide the strategies, tools, and resources to help make it intentionally and meaningfully inclusive. How do we do it? We do it by developing partnerships, relationships with programs, with associations and organizations, with individual practitioners and professionals, by providing education and training. So this is the professional development piece, building the knowledge and the expertise of not only what inclusive practices are, but how to implement them. So inclusion in mission and inclusion in action. Helping organizations create resources and tools, inclusive curricula, inclusive materials, inclusive manuals, inclusive guidebooks, learning how to implement specific inclusion strategies, knowing how to practically take what it is that we know as a field and bring it to your setting, your office, your classroom, your field, your building. And we're a nationally accrediting body. We accredit inclusive recreation programs so that they can be nationally recognized as being fully inclusive of every child in their care. This is all grounded in the standards for inclusive recreation programs. So what are the standards? The standards are a set of guidelines or a set of benchmarks along a program's inclusion journey. The standards are an educational tool that help break down what it is that we know are best practices in inclusionary programming. The standards range in domain or focus, everything from inclusionary administration and leadership, so things focusing in on mission and organization, all the way up through inclusion standards for how programs evaluate and assess their practices. We'll dive into the standards themselves in just a minute. But I want you to think about the benefit of having a guiding document. Think of it as like a roadmap on a journey. The benefit of having a map to guide your journey of how to become more inclusive so that it demystifies that gap, that space between wanting to be inclusive and actually being inclusive in practice. So the standards help to enhance what's already in practice in organizations. They help to expand the inclusionary services that are offered, and they help to celebrate or recognize all of the great things that are already in place. So they break down for organizations what it is that we know inclusion looks like at each level of an organization. We're going to talk a little bit about what the standards are, but want to tell you a little bit about who it is that developed them and how it is that we use them practically within the field. So National Inclusion Project partnered with the Center for Social Development and Education at the University of Massachusetts, Boston, to gather all of the research and evidence and practice information that we have from the field of recreation, from inclusion, from education, et cetera, and put together this guidebook, put together this map of standards to guide practice. It involved leaders and experts from around the country, advocates, family members, individuals with disabilities themselves, to help inform what it is that programs broadly do, what professionals specifically do, and what practitioners know how to do. So think about the standards as this map. Over here, we have kids learning, playing, discovering, and interacting together in your community program, in your classroom, in your association, at your camp, etc. Over here, we have full inclusion of all kids doing these enriching, amazing, exciting things together. Here, we have the standards that help us get there. So we are going to take a second to explore these standards. The standards are broken down into different areas, A, B, C, D, and E. So let's peek at what some of these standards are. All right, so here are a breakdown of the standards. Now, when you go to our website, which is www.inclusionproject.org, you can access standards digitally or download a PDF version of the standards to review in hard copy. But I want us to think about the standards as broad domains. We have inclusion standards to guide administration and leadership. In that standards area, we have things like, is your mission statement inclusionary? Does it attend to a commitment to inclusion? What does that look like? What does it say? How do you know? Okay. Is your leadership inclusionary? Okay. Are your hiring practices inclusionary, etc.? We have standards that help facilities and resources. So the physical places, spaces, and stuff that we use understand what it is that it means to be inclusionary. Are you accessible and ADA compliant? Do you have someone that monitors and contributes to making spaces accessible for the individuals who use them? Are the materials and tools that are used accessible to users and children and individuals who need to interact with those materials differently? We have standards that address staffing. Okay. Are those staff that support your program trained in inclusion practices? Are they trained in how to accommodate individuals' needs? Are they trained in how to communicate it differently? Do they understand person-first language? Okay. Are there enough staff to provide support? Is it part of the lens of each staff member to be responsible for a commitment to inclusion, etc.? There are standards that detail what it is that inclusive programming looks like. So that's the fun stuff, the stuff we get to do with kids and participants, how it is that we design games, how it is that we support children in making accommodations, changing materials, communicating with them, providing positive behavior support. There are standards that guide evaluation. Okay. How do we assess where we are? How inclusive are we? How do we know? How do we celebrate the things that are going really well? How do we plan for improvement for the things that are not? Okay. How do we communicate all of this to the people in our care? So now we're going to talk about how it is that you can take those standards and overlay them to whatever your area of expertise or focus is in your organization. So I want everyone to think about what it is that their particular role is. If you're an administrator, if you're a volunteer, if you're a supervisor, if you work in facilities, if you are a teacher, if you're a camp director, everybody think about their role. I'm going to ask everyone on the count of 3 to go ahead and unmute your microphone and just announce your role. Everybody at the same time, when I count to 3, is going to announce whatever it is that they consider their role to be. So think about one word that describes what you do. And on the count of 3, you're gonna unmute and share it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Go ahead, unmute.
Programmer.
Administrative.
Facilitator.
I love it. Okay, we have such a broad range of folks here together who clearly have a commitment to inclusive practice, right? I heard administrator. That means that you would attune to all of the inclusion standards, but pay particular attention to the administrative ones, right? I heard programmer, someone who designs the programs and activities that you do with your members and your participants. So all of the inclusion standards are going to inform your work, but you would attend specifically to the ones about staffing and programming. I heard facilities. Excellent. You would dive into what it is that those standards are for inclusive and accessible facilities and resources. I love it. So the standards are a really useful foundational document. They're an educational tool to guide programs along the different benchmarks of that inclusion journey. Okay. We also get back into the presentation here. Okay. Have specific inclusion strategies. Okay. And the specific inclusion strategies are here in the little sort of sightseeing stops along the way on this journey. So remember, the standards are A, B, C, D, E, etc. Okay. The strategies themselves are the how we do it with kids, how we do it with individuals, how we do it with our members. So the standards tell us what should be in practice. These little road stops along the way, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are the specific strategies that cue us into, how do I get from that being inclusive in mission to being inclusive in action? So we're going to explore some of those strategies together. 5 foundational steps for any program, any activity, any lesson, any interaction to think about inclusion, okay, to move toward being inclusive. Range from, first, check your attitude. Inclusion is based on the belief, the buy-in, the culture that it's possible. Okay, so for your organization, for your activity, for your classroom, for your lesson, for your facility to be more inclusive, you first have to buy into the fact that inclusion is essential, and inclusion is the expectation, and it's part of the fabric of who it is that you are and what you do. 2, know your kids, not their diagnoses. And again, this applies broadly to all ages, but at National Inclusion Project, we focus on serving children and their families. Know the child. This is person-centered, child first. Understand their strengths, their culture, their environment, their likes, their dislikes, their hobbies, the way it is that they communicate, how they interact. Don't focus in on their condition. Don't focus in on their diagnoses. And this is simply part of honoring the individual and then planning for how it is that you can maximize the strengths while you minimize the negative effect of a disability. Okay. 3, be open to questions and comments. Bridge communication. Again, this is particularly useful to supporting kids and their families, but broadly applies to inclusive practices that are universally important and effective across the board. Families are going to have questions. Be honest. When you don't know the answer, or you don't know how to do something, or how you might serve a particular child, say, we don't know, but we're going to work together to figure it out. Okay. Kids are going to have questions. Kids are going to have comments. Prompt that dialogue, build that discourse so that there's common understanding and connection that bridges from it. When you don't know, say you don't know. When you do know, use it as a teaching and learning opportunity for all. You want to celebrate both similarities and differences. Again, focus in on what it is that your participants can do, maximize the experiences so that everyone's engaging in those same activities, but in different ways, in ways that they can show their strengths, in ways that they can succeed, so that every person has that moment to celebrate every day in their interaction in your classroom, in your facility, at your camp, etc. And most importantly, step back and let kids be kids. Watch the magic of this happen. Take your cue from the children. Kids are the most amazing, naturally curious, wanting to connect little human beings on the planet. Watch their relationships build, their discoveries, their interests. Every child with a disability, no matter how mild or significant, has something that he or she can do independently and grow independently and have success independently and have a positive interaction with others. Watch for that, build on that, help kids make those connections and get your learning from them. So we're going to zero in on, based on those 5 foundational beliefs, those 5 key steps, how it is that we can actually bring within the standards those 5 foundational steps to practice, things that you can do in your everyday activities, whether it is that you're building lesson plans, games, even things translate to the office setting if you're working with a diverse group of individuals. Since we have such a broad group of folks here, I want to honor the experience and expertise that everyone's bringing to the table. So let me get into our document here. I'm going to leave this standards document. If I can get out. All right. So we're going to talk about how it is that you can create inclusive activities. While my computer catches up. Does anybody have any questions? I'll take this as a great pause point. Anybody have any questions so far before we dive into the activities themselves? All right, okay, so get back into. All right, give me a thumbs up if my screen is caught up with me. Perfect. So 5 powerful ways to think about designing or adapting activities to be more inclusive. So if you're working on activity development from the get-go and you're saying to yourself, okay, I know I have a diverse group of thinkers, learners, and feelers who are going to be interacting with this content, let's design it inclusively from the beginning. Or you have an activity that you may have always done and you want to hang on to it because it's been really effective in the past, but you want to adapt it so that it's more inclusive of all of your different thinkers, movers, and feelers. Okay. You want to focus in on these 5 things. First, think about how you can adjust the time for an activity. Okay. Raise your hand. Go ahead and unmute your camera if you know what the concept of wait time is. Wait time. Good. I see some hands going up. Okay. Thumbs going up. Perfect. Okay. Wait time is an example of how it is that you can, from the beginning, create more inclusive interactions, discoveries, and discussions in your day by increasing the wait time from the time it is that you ask a question until when it is that you want to solicit an answer or get a response or have someone execute an action. So the time that you ask or provide direction to when it is that you want that answer to happen or activity to occur. Wait time is critically important. We do not provide enough wait time for anybody, especially kids, to actually be able to process what we're asking before it is that we expect them to answer or do the activity. I'm a parent. I'm a much better teacher than I am a parent. Okay, I do not provide enough wait time for my kids. I say, okay, tell me what it is that you want me to pack for lunch tomorrow or what you want, and I expect an answer right away. Okay, we do the same thing all of the time with individuals with whom we interact. We need to understand that in order for our actions and our interactions to be inclusive, we need to provide more wait time. In the very least, 10 seconds. 10 seconds takes a lot longer than you think it will. Okay. For individuals who have disabilities, they often need 9 times that. So from the time that you provide a direction, we're going to ask individuals, give them 90 seconds before we expect them to do something or respond. Guess what happens when you increase the time that you provide in wait time for your kiddos who have special needs because they need more time? You actually end up meeting the needs of all of the kids because you've given them the grace and the gift of time to be able to respond and interact and process as well. So slow down, take the time to learn, discover, and interact. You want to think about the tools that you're using. What equipment are we using for this activity? even if it's virtual. How engaging and accessible and interactive are the materials that we're using, the platforms that we're using, the stuff, so that everyone has an opportunity to engage? Do we need to account for different modes of communication? Do we need to account for different modes of feel, of different physical use, of different touch? Do we need to account for things now like physical distancing? Do we need to account for how it is that we communicate differently when it is that we're wearing masks? Is this going to be an indoor activity or an outdoor activity? So think about the tools that are used. If you can consider in designing those tools or how it is that you're using those tools, what it is that the most significant needs might be, and you adapt to that, then you're universally going to end up meeting everyone's needs. So it's going to help everyone. Okay? Everyone needs a variety of tools to engage with different kinds of activities and tasks. What about cues? Think about how it is that we cue each other. We use verbal cues. I'm speaking to you and at you right now, right? We also can use picture cues, okay? What it is that it looks like to be on mute, okay? What it is that it looks like when we are off of mute, okay? We can also use tactile cues, how it is that we touch, where it is that we place materials, how it is that we interact, how we build the physical space around us. Most importantly, how we cue others. We model the behavior, the language, the terminology, the actions that we want others to do. That works for kids, that works for adults. That's just how we're wired to learn. So we should cue, I do first, before we expect for them to do. Transitions, how we get kids into an activity, how we move through that activity, and then how it is that we move away from or start a new activity. As adults, whether it's school or camp or church, or services or at home, we completely forget about the importance of transition. The most behavior problems or the most challenging behaviors that we get frustrated with occur during transition time. If we can build in transitional supports and make transitions structured and predictable and manageable for our kiddos, even kids with the most significant needs will successfully move their way into, between, and beyond each activity that you're asking them to. And success. How are we going to define success in this activity for Annette? How are we going to define success in this activity for Amanda? How are we going to define success for Esther, for Sarah, etc.? Why? Because especially in recreation and leisure situations, success breeds success. I am not going to engage repeatedly in something that is going to cause me stress and failure. Okay, especially kids with disabilities who experience that during their school day over and over and over again. We want our recreation experiences to have cumulative opportunities for success so that every child can succeed in something. Okay. Not all the time. It's important to learn those ups and downs and problem solving, but every child should leave the day wanting to celebrate something. Especially for the fact that many children with disabilities never feel like they ever get to celebrate anything. We need to create it for them. How can we make it happen? Okay. So here are a handful of things that we can consider. Okay. First are fidgets. Okay. How many of you use a fidget? Anybody out there use a fidget, keep a fidget, something to keep their fingers and their hands busy? Okay. I have a squishy ball here that also happens to light up. Okay. That's a great fidget for me and some of the kiddos that I work with. Okay. Anybody like barefoot right now and just kind of like fidgeting their feet around, right? Okay. Fidget spinners, of course, are all the rage, but fidgets are anything that give you that sensory stimulation that keeps your mind focused on the activity at hand. Okay. Use fidgets, have them available, create sensory tools for your kids so that they can engage in healthy, appropriate, effective movement, okay, and not all of the other body movement and interaction that you don't necessarily want to see. Okay. Task cards. Okay. Go ahead and drop into the chat a yes or no if you've ever followed a recipe. How are my cooks out there? Recipes. Yes, no's, maybes. You don't have to like it. You just have to have done it. Okay. Yes, I see lots of yeses. Okay. Recipes essentially are a task card. Okay. Task cards are simply the breakdown of what's expected. Okay. So create task cards for your kiddos for how it is that they need to move step by step through an activity. The coolest thing about creating task cards, okay, you can do it for them or you can do it with them, okay, is it helps you as the activity designer to really deeply understand each component to an activity because you have to break it down into steps. So it's a real huge light bulb and aha moment to you as the educator, as the camp counselor, as the session leader to think, what's involved with this and how is it that I can teach individuals to do this? So creating task cards, super, super, super powerful. Picture schedules. Okay. Picture schedules. Here's an example of one. Great tool to be able to give your kids different modes of understanding or communicating for their day, for their activity, for their week. You can make them as big, as elaborate, or as developmentally complicated or not for whoever it is that needs that. Okay. It's a great way, especially when we're wearing masks for different activities, to be able to orient the children to what it is that's coming up. So attach both words and pictures and actions to each of the components of something that you want a child to learn or understand. Activity scripts and picture stories. Create stories or download stories or buy stories that model the behavior and the expectations and the flow of what it is that you want kids to engage in. They can be super simple like this, or it could be using examples from children's literature that are common or understood by the kids in your care so that they know what to do, what's expected, and how to interact. Most powerful, offer opportunities for individual level choice or alternative choice. That doesn't mean that they get to choose not to do something. They simply get control or ownership over some piece of their day of how it is that they want to do it. That ownership, that control is incredibly empowering for children overall, especially children with disabilities, so that you can say to them, here's what we have to do. Let's put it in the order and do it in the order that you feel like today, right? Or why don't you lead this activity for us? You model the movement. You be the dancing DJ and call out or show us what it is that you want us to do, right? Provide those opportunities. We thrive on that as grown-ups too. Right? I'm just going to quick check on my time. Okay. I see in the chat here, because my window had closed, that Esther says that she often improvises in her recipes. That's okay. One of the things that you'll find when you're doing any of this with your kiddos is that once you model each of these things, once you provide them with a fidget, once you create task cards, once you develop the picture schedules, etc., the kids attach to it so intensely and it's so effective then that they want to start doing these things too. They want to be part of that development process. They want to create them for themselves. And none of this has to cost any money. You can make every activity inclusive by simply using your mind, your heart, and what's available to you to engage with and embrace the kids. All right, so remember, the standards, the ABCs, guide what it is that programs know are best practices in inclusionary programming. The little stops along the way are those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strategies for what it is that we can do to make those standards implement in action every day with what it is that we actually do with the kids. So standards guide the practice, the strategies influence what it is that we do as practitioners, the ideas of how it is that we can make that real for kids. I'm going to pause here for any broad questions before it is that we get to some of our closing activities. So feel free to unmute or drop questions or comments into the chat. I'm also going to drop into the chat for you. Okay. While it is that I'm waiting to see if any questions pop up. Okay. Perfect, just got my time check. We're right on track. Okay. I'm going to drop into the chat here for anyone that wants them. Examples of things like those tips, tools, and strategies. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. I'm not seeing other questions. I just want to make sure I'm not missing them from folks.
I had asked, but I think that it's going to be coming with the tips that you're sending if the presentation will be available.
Yes, that will be available as well. That comes directly from the conference. Is that right, guys?
Yes, it will be on the Spot Me platform after the conference is over. We've asked everybody to send in their presentations in case they've made any changes. And I think somewhere around the second week of May, everything will be up there.
Great, that's perfect. And I'm going to change here so that I can make sure this goes out to everybody. I just sent Sarah all of these as a direct message, so I'm going to send again. Any other questions that I can answer for folks while it is that I get these materials to upload? Tools for helping children who are having trouble managing their emotions. Yes, we have tools and strategies specifically for positive behavior and positive emotional processing supports for kids. So I certainly can share those with you, or please do visit the MIP website and get in touch with me so that we can provide them to you and for you. All right, I'm going to upload one more tip sheet for folks. Okay. Thank you for the note about my video. I will get that in 1 second here. I think I may have double clicked on something. Okay. And I'm going to ask as I get my video to come up. Okay. For us to dive into some of our poll questions for today. Sarah or Annette, are you able to bring up some just poll checkpoint questions for us to think about together as a group? Yeah. All right, someone give me a thumbs up if you see those poll questions pop up on your screen.
It's actually telling me that I can't you're logged in from another device. Now that is very strange because it worked just before. Give me another second.
Let's give it a shot. If not, I can actually just present them to folks verbally and solicit sign language response from folks.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I don't want to waste time. I don't know what happened.
Not at all. I'm going to just ask folks some key questions here. So feel free to use the chat function or unmute to share your response or go ahead and tell me an A, B, or C for your answers. The inclusive practices that we've talked about today, so the inclusion strategy, supports, tips, and tools, benefit who? Which children? Do they benefit some kids? Do they benefit kids with disabilities? Do they benefit all kids? Okay. Some kids. Okay. Oh, good. I already heard lots of everyone say every child, all children. Excellent. Very, very good. And so whatever it is that you put in place in inclusive supports will benefit all children. Excellent job. So let's ask another here. I want you to think back to those 5 foundational steps to inclusion. Okay. Things like check your attitude, know your kids, be open to questions, celebrate similarities and differences, and let kids be kids. Want you to think about your practice, your role, and what you do, and think about which one of those is particularly important or powerful to you. You don't need to respond aloud to this one. I want you to think about this one resonates with me because. Check your attitude. Do you believe in inclusion? Know your kids. Be open to questioning. Celebrate similarities and differences, and let kids be kids. Okay. Now, taking that as our springboard, I want you to think about a particular inclusion strategy that you know that you already use, either in your work life, either in your JCCA life, in your camp life, in your school life. Okay. Do you use things like fidgets? Do you use task cards? Do you use queuing? Do you use adjusted time? Do you use, my goodness, do you use picture schedules? Do you use alternative choice or individual choice? Do you create social stories or activity scripts? Think about something that you know matches one of those inclusion strategies, and go ahead and drop into the chat something that you already do. Something that you already do that is a great inclusive practice. I see things like queuing, visual schedules, wait time, awesome. I see all of the above and those coming up. Excellent. And Sarah's putting into the chat all of the different options that we can choose from. Alternative choice, task cards. What I want everyone to commit to do when they go into their setting tomorrow, even if it's the Zoom setting for the conference, right? Okay. When you go into that setting, I want you to think about maximizing one of those things that you already do well or that you already use to promote inclusion, and trying a new one. Okay. Take on one new idea, one new strategy, one new tool, and say, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try it out with the kids that I work with. I might try it out with my family. I might use it with my husband, might use it with a colleague, and see if it improves or enhances our interactions. I bet you $100 right now that it will. Why? Because inclusion works. Inclusion strategies are universally effective for all learners to learn, grow, succeed, and achieve. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring back up my presentation jumped the whole way back to the beginning, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it the whole way to the end of our interaction because we're getting ready to close out. And I'm going to end us on my contact information. Again, my organization is National Inclusion Project. We provide education, we provide tools, we provide professional development, we provide curricula. We are an accrediting body. We help programs assess and evaluate what it is that they're doing and how they're doing in their inclusionary practices. Most importantly, we simply provide an opportunity for collaboration and support. To reach us, go to our website, www.inclusionproject.org. To reach me, and you'll all get this contact information through the conference, but you can email me at Amanda Kloo, that's KLOO, at inclusionproject.org. I live in the matrix, so feel free to contact me anytime and I will get back in touch with you. But I want to end on just a decompression activity that's called teddy bears and crocodiles. So I want you to think about as if you had your favorite teddy bear with you and just wrap your arms around you. Take some big, deep crocodile breaths. Big breath in, big breath out, and roll and rotate to get ready for your next session, some big stretches, and think about how it is that you can choose one way to be more inclusive in your interactions tomorrow when you engage in the conference or your work again. That's all I have, folks.
Wow. Thank you, Amanda. We do have some time for questions.
Yes, perfect.
So I invite anyone to, let's try unmuting ourselves, and as long as not everyone's talking together, we'll, rather than put it in the chat, but of course put it in the chat too if you have a question.
See, lots of thank yous. The pleasure is mine. My very first teaching job many years ago was as a preschool teacher at the JCC in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So my heart lies with all of you.
That's fabulous. So I'm going to adopt already one of your suggestions, and I'm going to give people more wait time.
Yes.
So I am going to say, take your time to think of a question or challenge, anything that has been said, and I'm sure Amanda would love to answer.
Thank you all so much.
They're spellbound, dumbfounded. I don't know what the word is, but I think, Amanda, you just gave such a wonderful mixture of theory, but also some very important practical hints and ideas for those people who are already professionals in the area of inclusion, but for each and every one of us who need to become professionals in inclusion. It shouldn't be a separate profession. So,
yep. And that's the key right there. Thank you for sharing that, is that we all are inclusion advocates. We all, no matter our position or our role or our status in life, we are all inclusion advocates, because it is something that we all have to share a commitment to be able to make happen.
Absolutely.
And Amanda, it's such a gift too, because in my work doing inclusion, I learned that when I would take a suggestion with a child struggling with serious emotional challenges, sometimes the partner that I was looking for, like a horseback riding place, they would be afraid, like, well, I'll start a special group for these children, when what all they needed was just to kind of, like everything you said, is just kind of have a support person there to say, no, this is an opportunity for every child to learn and grow together and understanding each other and our differences and our similarities. So I just appreciated that theme so much in there, because it's just a thread in building those partnerships.
Thank you. And thank you for what you do very much, not only for the kids and the families, but professionally.
So Holly and Amanda, I have a question, and it's something, we think about. Are there times when inclusion isn't the right thing, and that there should be separate attention given to one of these recreational activities?
Right. One of the things to think about is that inclusion doesn't it doesn't have to be the exclusionary choice or the singular choice, right? Inclusion is always the the best opportunity, the best situation. But even in inclusive situations, there's still that opportunity, or we need to carve out those opportunities to honor individual difference. So you may need more support or something specialized than a peer does. That can still be provided in environments that are focused in on the universal benefits of inclusion. There still are benefits to adaptive programming or specialized programming that offers certain things just for certain kids, absolutely. But we learn and grow by connecting together. So that has to be balanced out with those inclusionary experiences where it is that kids with and without disabilities can engage as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Wonderful.
Beautifully said, just so beautifully said.
Like to call that a continuum of inclusion.
Absolutely. If we think about the way it is that we do that in schools and the continuum of service, right? We need to think about the same opportunities and multiple structures and levels and scaffolds within recreation and leisure as well.
Fabulous. So I'm going to say a huge thank you on behalf of everybody here to Amanda for sharing your passion and your wisdom, and for charging us with the job to make sure that for the rest of the day, I'm not giving people the discount you gave them. You told them tomorrow. I'm saying today to go out and think about how we can all do a better job of being more sensitive and more inclusive in the way we work with our colleagues, our family, and our friends. So thank you so much. And I hope this is the beginning of a relationship with many JCCs as you move forward. I'm just have a couple of announcements, if you can bear with me. As we've already learned from here, our colleagues are our best teachers. So you have, after this session, beginning at 4 o'clock, 2 excellent showcase presentations. You can get to choose 2. One is going from 4 to 4:30, and the other from 4, well, it's actually 4 to 2:25, and the next one will be from 4:30 to 5 Eastern. It's a good idea to check which ones you want to go to now, so because you're not going to have an awful lot of time between to check. And it's an opportunity for you to learn from your co-workers in areas of programming, areas of visionary management, areas of staff retention. There have been these different categories and in fundraising and development. We got a huge number of applications, over 60 applications, and we are showcasing just 17 of them in two groups, in 2 parallel groups. And they really are the best of the best for you to learn from your colleagues. And one of the criteria in choosing them was that they were programs or visionary statements that were replicable in other JCCs. So it wasn't just that they were amazing because they happened to live on the water and they could do this amazing program that demands a JCC on the water, but it had to be something that could be replicable. So have a look at Spot Me, decide which ones you want to go to. You will not be disappointed. A quick reminder that the virtual vendor hall will be open again tomorrow on Thursday at 1:45 to 2:45 Eastern time. And during this time, your sponsors will be available for live, engaging and informative conversations, videos, breakouts. You can also chat with them on Spot Me. You can chat with Amanda on Spot Me as well, and keep the conversation going. Thank you to Annette, who has helped make sure that this session ran so smoothly, to Amanda, and to all of you for giving us your time and your attention. And enjoy the rest of the conference. It's been wonderful having you with us today. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.